Take a withered root out of dry ground. No beauty, no glory to draw us to Him, and nothing in His outward form to desire. He was despised and rejected, a man of
Shalom, welcome to Servant Warriors. Today we are going over 2 Kings, and we're going to actually start, though, in Judges. So, I'm going to try to go over it slowly so that we can keep track of these kings and what was going on with each one of them, and their sons and their daughters, and how everything got commingled. Excuse me. And Judges 1:1. So after the death of Joshua, the people of Israel asked Adonai, "Who will go up for us first to fight against the Canaanites, the Canaanite?" Adonai said, "Yehuda will go up. Here I have handed the land over to him." Okay, so Yehuda goes first. And Yehuda said to his brother Shimon, "Come up with me into my assigned territory so that we can fight against the Canaanite, and I likewise will go with you into your territory." So Shimon went with them. So there's the bond between Judah and Simeon. And Simeon's inheritance is Beersheba, so it's right in the middle of Judah. A lot of people put Simeon in the northern kingdom, and they would be wrong to do that. Yehuda went up, and Adonai gave the Canaanite and the Perizzites into their hands. Of those in Bezek, they killed 10,000 men. So Father gave them over. They found Adonai Bezek in Bezek. Or not Adonai, Adoni, sorry. And they fought against him. They killed the Canaanites and the Perizzite. But Adoni Bezek fled. They pursued him, caught him, and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Adoni Bezek said 70 kings with their thumbs and their big toes cut off gathered food under my table. God has paid me back in accordance with what I did. They brought him into Jerusalem and he died there. So Judah was right in doing this, and Father used it to pay back this king. 70 kings, he cut off their thumbs and big toes. Then the people of Yehuda fought against Jerusalem, captured it, overpowered it with the sword, and set the city on fire. Burned it down. Afterwards, the people of Yehuda went down to fight against the Canaanites who lived in the hill country, in the Negev and in the Shephelah. And we went over where the Negev desert and the Shephelah area is. And when we were looking at the maps, and I can't remember which video it was, but we did it. Sorry about that noise. I've got the volume turned down. I don't know why it still does it. Yehuda also attacked the Canaanites living in Hebron. And remember, David ruled in Hebron. 7 years. And I believe it was Jerusalem, 33 years. From there, they attacked the inhabitants of Devere, was formerly called Kiryat Sefer. And Caleb said, see, Caleb's still alive. It was Joshua and Caleb that went into the promised land, Yehoshua. To whoever overpowers Kiryat Sefer and captures it, I will give my daughter Ahasa as his wife. Asa, not Ahasa. Asa as his wife. Oh, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured it. So he gave him Asa as his daughter, as his wife. So Caleb's daughter marries her uncle, Caleb's brother. After becoming his wife, she pursued him to ask her father to give them a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What do you want?" She said, "Give me a blessing since you gave me land in the Negev." So this Negev Valley was their territory here in Judges, because she's got land there. Also, give me sources of water. So Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. Next, the descendants of the Keni, Moshe's father-in-law, that's Yitro, or Jethro in the King James, went up out of the city of date palms with the people of Yehuda into the Yehuda desert south of Arad, and they came and settled with the people. Yehuda went with Shimon, his brother, Judah and Simeon. They overpowered the Canaanites who inhabited Saphat and completely destroyed it. The name of the city was called Hormah. Yehuda also took Gaza with his territory, Ashkelon with its territory, and Ekron with its territory. Now, Ekron, I recognize because I think that's where the golden calf was placed in Dan, because it's like at the border of that territory. And one of the calves was placed in Bet El in Ephraim's territory. And that's what we're studying in Kings is we started with Jeroboam after Solomon was punished and was given the 10 northern kingdoms, or 10 northern territories. Sorry, they're not all kingdoms. 10 tribes. Okay, so Yehuda also took Gaza. So Oz's Gaza with its territory. So Gaza belongs to Yehuda, and Ashkelon with its territory, and Ekron with its territory. So it belongs to the 12 tribes. Okay? Not necessarily Yehuda's inheritance, because Yehuda's fighting and taking out stuff for other people too. Because Ekron's not, when you look on the map, and I can go pull that up, is not Yehuda's territory. However, Yehuda fought there. He took it. Okay, so Adonai was with Yehuda, and they took possession of the hill country because they could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley since they had iron chariots. Well, Yehuda might not have been able to, but Father can. So the inhabitants wasn't all driven out. That's the problem. And they gave Hebron to Caleb. Remember David and Hebron. So this is Caleb's territory. And Caleb's Judah. Joshua was Ephraim. Joshua was from the tribe of Ephraim. As Moshe had said to do. And he drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak. Now, 21. The people of Benjamin did not drive out Evusi, who inhabited Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is Benjamin's inheritance. And Benjamin did not drive out the Evusi. Rather, the Evusi continued living with the people of Benjamin in Jerusalem as they do to this day. So they weren't all driven out as they should have been. Now here's and Benjamin, Simeon are Yehuda, they're Judah. Okay. So I just wanted to show you this. This is Judges 1. Father was already making a distinction between the southern kingdom of Judah, which is Benjamin and Simeon with Judah, and the house of Joseph. So in Ezekiel 37, I hate to just quote scripture and then not just go to it. I'll go to it here in a minute. So let's just read 22. The house of Joseph likewise attacked Bet El, and Adonai was with them. And Bet El is in Ephraim's territory. Okay. This is why we look at the maps. It helps us understand the scripture better and what they're doing. And so the important part is you walk as Judah if you're the southern kingdom, and you walk as Joseph if you're of the northern kingdom. When the 2 sticks are put back together, it's the house of Joseph and the house of Judah. Okay. Ezekiel 37. And this is before the split. However, the distinction is still being made between the 2 houses. Okay. It's important to know that the northern kingdom are not Judah, which means they're not Jew. They're not Jews. Okay, so the house of Joseph likewise attacked Bet El, and Adonai was with them. The house of Joseph sent spies to Bet El. The city was formerly called Luz. The spies saw a man coming out of the city and said to him, "Please show us the way to enter the city, and we will treat you kindly." So he showed them the way to the city, and they overpowered the city with the sword, but they let the man and all his family go free. That's kind of like Rahab, right? With Joshua. So this family helped, and they let him go free. He went into the land of the Hittim, built a city, and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. Okay, Manasseh. Manasseh's Joseph's firstborn, also listed in the 144,000. Manasseh did not drive out the inhabitants of Bet Shean and its villages, or Shan, I don't know. Ta'anak and its villages, Dor and its villages, Evlaam and its villages, or Megiddo and its villages. So the Canaanites managed to keep on living in the land. So you got the Canaanites commingled with the northern kingdom, and there was the Avusi that wasn't driven out of the southern territory. And Benjamin let the, who was it again? Yeah, Avusi. Avusi was still in Jerusalem. And I can't remember what they're called in the King James. Okay, so Dor, its villages, Evliam and its villages, or Megiddo. And Megiddo, we know, is, the valley of Megiddo, which they say is, where the Battle of Armageddon will happen. It's the valley of Megiddo and its villages. So the Canaanites managed to keep on living in that land. In time when Israel had grown strong, they did put the Canaanites to forced labor, but failed to drive them out completely. It shouldn't have been there at all, right? Not as slaves, not as anything. They should have just been driven out of the land, but that didn't happen. Now we get to Ephraim. Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer. So the Canaanites continue living in Gezer along with them. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of the Kitron or Nahala. So the Canaanites continued to live among them, but became subject to forced labor. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko, Sidon, Aklav. And this is, Asher's territory. You pay attention to this, and this is how you pinpoint Asher's territory. Zebulun's, Ephraim's, all that, right? Sidon is like north of Israel. I don't know who's occupying it now, but we know it's not the northern kingdom, right? So the Asheri lived among the Canaanites who were living in the land because they didn't drive them out. Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Bet Shemesh or Bet Anat, but lived among the Canaanites living in the land, or Canaanite. However, the inhabitants of Bet Shemesh and Bet Anat became forced labor for them. Now the Amori forced the people of Dan into the hills, for they would not let them come down to the valley. So not only did Dan not drive out the Amori forced the people of Dan out of the valley into the hills. The Amori had resolved to live in the Heres Hills, in Ayalon, and in Sha'avim. But when the power of the house of Yosef grew greater, they became subject to forced labor. So the Amori did end up being their slaves. However, they all should have been driven out. So the territory of the Amori was from the Scorpion accent and the rock upward. They shouldn't see, none of these pagans should have had any territory in the land. But this is how it happened, guys. So it helps explain what was going on with the tribes and the difference between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom before they were even separated. It's the house of Yosef and the house of Judah. So let's go to Ezekiel 37 again so we can just read that out. "37:15 The word of Adonai came to me, you human being, take one stick and write on it for Yehuda, and those joined with him among the people of Israel. So that would be Benjamin, that would be Simeon, okay? And Levites, of course. However, it's still just, people always consider it's just Judah and Benjamin. And in some ways it is, because Simeon kind of got just swallowed up by Judah, for lack of a better word. But they're still their own tribe, right? Okay, so they're walking as Judah. And Yeshua calls it the 2 and the 10. And Levi didn't get inheritance. Their inheritance was father. They got the best inheritance. Um, so, but they didn't get in land, right? The first time. And so that would be Simeon, Yehuda, and Benjamin when you're looking at inherited land. Okay, so for Yehuda and those joined with him among the people of Israel. Next, take another stick and write on it for Yosef, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel who are joined with him. Okay, so if you are in Ephraim and you repent, you're walking as Yosef, because it's the house of Yosef. It's not the house of Ephraim. Okay. Finally, bring them together into a single stick so that they become one in your hand. This is when Yeshua is going to make the 2 become one in him. And he's gathering right now these sticks. He's going to steal his repentant ones, his bride and his 144,000. And that's the man child. And then the woman's going to go into the great tribulation. And the woman that repents, he'll protect for the greater exodus. Okay, so now we're going to go into Kings. Help us get a better understanding of the 2 houses and how they were there was a difference between them always, right? It wasn't just when Father separated him over Solomon's idolatry. He made a distinction between the 2 houses right from, beginning, at least in Judges that I can see. If have to go back further, but I see that to me it's always been a distinction, right? Okay, and it's very interesting, that he made a distinction when they were going into the land. You see the 2 and the 10 in Caleb and Joshua, because Caleb was Judah and Joshua Ephraim, and he was repentant, so he was of the house of Yosef, and they got to go in, right? Okay, so 2 Kings 1:1. After Ahab's death, Moab rebelled against Israel. So when Ahab dies, Moab sees sees it as a good time to take up arms or rebel against Israel. The king falls, there's your opportunity. Okay, so when Ahaziah fell through a lattice, now this is Ahab's son, who was made king in the last chapter of 1 Kings. So Ahaziah falls through this lattice window of his upper room in Shamron and lay injured. And Shamron is the capital of the northern kingdom, and Jerusalem, the capital of the southern kingdom. And Father calls them the two sisters, Shamron and Yerushalayim, which is, northern and southern. Okay, so he sent messengers and said to them, go consult Baal-Zebuv, little g god of Ekron. So, yeah, there's Ekron, and let me go to my little map, if I can find it. Here we go. Come on. Blow that up. Right here at the bottom of Dan's territory, there's Ekron. And then again, in Ephraim, there's Bet-El. So there you got the calves, golden calves where those little stars are. Pretty sure it's Ekron, guys, because the whole point Jeroboam was, because I haven't seen it listed, because when he lists, when you read it in the word that he set up these two golden calves, when Jeroboam set this up, it just reads he did it in Bethel and Dan. It wasn't specific to where in Dan, but when I read about Ekron, that's what I'm coming up with. Okay, and he was doing it to prevent the northern kingdom from being able to get to Jerusalem to worship Father. Okay. He's like, nah, you're not going back down south at all. We're not doing that. Here's you some golden calves. This is your God, and set up the altars and sacrifices. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay, because, he rebelled right off the bat when Father gave him the same opportunity he gave David. He said, if you obey me, I'll make you the same promises I gave David. And he got worried about Rehoboam getting the northern kingdom back under his rule, and decided to go it on his own. And it was a very stupid mistake, clearly. But it's already happened. I just like to think about what were they thinking. They're thinking about their own power, and and not realizing that only comes from Father. You're not. I don't know. It's a good thing that we're not having no more kings. We have the king, and there's only one king, Yeshua. So, okay, so let's get back, Shelley. Stop getting off on tangents. Talking to myself now. Oh, I should have left the map up. Okay, right there. Let's go back here. All right, so Ahaziah fell through the lattice window in the upper room of Shamron and lay injured. He sent messengers and said to them, consult Beelzebub, little g god of Ekron, and ask whether I will recover, not it, whether I will recover from this injury. But the angel of Adonai said to Eliyahu from Tishbe, get up and intercept the messages of the king of Shamron and ask them, is it because there's no God in Israel that you're on your way to consult Beelzebub, little g god of Ekron? Yeah, no kidding. Therefore, Adonai says, you will never leave the bed you were lying on. You will certainly die. Then Eliyahu left. And there's Revelation 2, that Jezebel's sick bed that she was going to throw people in for not repenting of his own children that won't repent. Not the world, not pointing to the Catholic Church or any other church, his own believing children. Just like right here, his own children in the inherited land that they were given. He doesn't change. Okay, so you will never leave the bed you are lying on. You will certainly die. Then Eliyahu left. He sent Eliyahu. as a watchman for the northern kingdom, told him to also repent and was merciful. The messengers returned to Ahaziah, and he asked them, "Why have you come back?" They answered him, "A man came to meet us. He told us to go and return to the king who sent us and tell him, here's what Adonai says. It is because there's no God. Is it because there's no God in Israel that you're sending to consult Beelzebub, the little g god of Ekron? Therefore, you will never leave the bed you are lying on. You will certainly die." He asked them, "The man who came to meet you and told you these things, what kind of man was he?" "He was a hairy man," they answered him, "with a leather belt around his waist." He said, it was Eliyahu from Tishbe. Then the king sent a commander of 50 to Eliyahu. Together with his 50 men, Eliyahu was sitting at the top of a hill. The commander climbed up to him and said, "Man of God, the king says to come down." Eliyahu answered the commander of 50, If I am in fact a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and burn you up, along with your 50 men." So there's 51. Fire came down from heaven and it burned up him and his 50 men. The king sent him another commander of 50. Together with his 50 men, he said to them, "Man of God, the king says, come down immediately." Eliyahu answered them, "If I'm in fact a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and burn you up along with your 50 men. Fire came down from heaven and it burned up him and his 50 men. The king sent a third commander of 50 with his 50 men. So there's 153. The third commander of 50 climbed up, approached Eliyahu, and fell on his knees before him. He pleaded with him, "Man of God, please have some regard for my life and the lives of these 50 men of the earth, the lives of these 50 servants of yours." So 1/3 of the 153 humbled themselves before Elijah, asking mercy for their lives. So there's the 1/3 that repents, and the thirds that are judged. 1/3 to the sword, 1/3 to the plague, and 1/3 to the sword again that'll chase them. I forget how it's worded. And famine too, it's listed a lot. Okay, so I know that fire came down from heaven and burned up the two commanders with their 50 men, but now have some regard for my life. The angel of Adonai said to Eliyahu, "Go down with him. Don't be afraid of him." So he got up and went down with him to the king. Eliyahu said to the king, "Here's what Adonai says. You sent messengers to consult Beelzebub, little g god of Ekron. Is it because there's no God in Israel you can consult? Therefore, you will never leave the bed you are lying on. You will certainly die." Verse 17. So he died in keeping with the word of Adonai spoken through Eliyahu. And that's verse 17, Yeshua's number. So Jehoram began to rule during the second year, rule in place of him during the second year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, because he had no son. So Jehoram began to rule in place of him during the second year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, because he had no son. Jehoram or Jehoram. Sorry, I'm trying to make a distinction here. I took notes when I studied this the first time, but I can't remember what I wrote. Jehoram began to rule place him during the second year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. Other activities of Ahaziah are recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. We'll go through Chronicles too, and all of Judges. I plan to. Okay, so 2. The time came for Adonai to take Eliyahu up into heaven in a whirlwind. Eliyahu and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. When Eliyahu and Elisha said to Elisha, please wait here, because Adonai has sent me all the way to Bethel. But Elisha said, as Adonai lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. The guild prophets of Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, do you know that Adonai is taking your master away from you today? Yes, I know, he answered. Say no more. Eliyahu said to him, Elisha, please wait here, because Adonai has sent me to Jericho. He replied, as Adonai lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. So they came to Jericho. The guild prophets of Jericho approached Elisha and said to him, do you know that Adonai is taking your master away from you today? Yes, I know, he answered. Say no more. How many, I should have counted this. How many people came up to Elisha and said that? I didn't count it. But I don't want to make the video longer than it is. We need to count this stuff. So Eliyahu said to him, please wait here, because Adonai has sent me to the Jordan. That's the Jordan. He replied, as Adonai lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on. And how many times did Elijah say that to Elisha? If you're going to pronounce it the American way. I don't know, but it was several times, at least 4. So 50 of the guild prophets went and stood watching them from a distance while they stood by the Jordan. Then Eliyahu took his cloak, there's his mantle, rolled it up, and struck the water with it. And the water divided itself to the left and to the right, so that they crossed on dry ground. So that was the Jordan River. After they had crossed, Eliyahu said to Elisha, tell me what I can do for you before I'm taken away from you. Elisha said, please, let a double share or double portion, let a double share of your spirit be on me. He replied, you have requested a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken from you, you will get what you ask for, but if not, you won't. Suddenly, as they were walking on and taking, and I just want to pause first. You know, this is what Yeshua was teaching us about the mantle being passed down from Elijah to Elisha, that he knew he needed the double portion, and the mantle of the bride is passed down. He even spoke about the little owl, or the great owl and the little owl, and that the little owls belong to him too, but they, he will call some of them in to be the bride. And how did he word it? Pray for the, I don't know if he said pray for those people need to pray for the mantle of the bride. I can't remember exactly. But he made a distinction, you know, of Elijah being a doer of the word, and Elisha at first was following the doer of the word. He was a hearer only, right? But he recognized he needed the double portion, and then he became, as we'll keep reading, a doer. Suddenly, as they were walking on and talking, there appeared a fiery chariot with horses on fire, And as it separated the two of them from each other, Eliyahu went up into heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. Then he lost sight of him. Seizing his clothes, he tore them in half. He was sad. Then he lost sight of them. Okay, sorry. Then he picked up Eliyahu's cloak. He picked up Elijah's mantle, which had fallen off him, standing on the bank of the Jordan. He took the cloak, the mantle, that had fallen off Eliyahu, struck the water, and said, where is Adonai, the God of Eliyahu? But when he actually did strike the water, it divided itself to the left and to the right. Then Elisha crossed over. So this would be Elisha's first miracle. When the guild prophets of Jericho saw him in the distance, they said, the spirit of Eliyahu does rest on Elisha. Advancing to meet him, they prostrated themselves on the ground before him and said to him, hear now, your servants include 50 strong men. So there's 50 again. Please let them go and look for your master. In the event that the spirit of Adonai has taken him up and set him down on some mountain or in some valley. He answered, do not send them. Verse 17. But they kept pressing him until finally embarrassed, he said to them, or he said to send them. Sorry, he said to send them. So they sent 50 men for 3 days. They searched. There's the 3 days. And 50, but they didn't find him. On returning to him where he was waiting in Jericho, he said to them, I told you not to go, didn't I? The men of the city said to Elisha, my Lord can see that this place is a pleasant city to live in, but the water is bad, so that the ground is causing miscarriages. Bring me a new jug, he said, and put salt in it. They brought it to him. So salt covenant, we're the salt of the earth. Thinking of the applications of salt. Bring me a new jug. And then it goes on 21. He went out to the source of the water, threw salt into it, and said, this is what Adonai says. I have healed this water. It will no longer cause death or miscarriages. The water was healed and has remained healed to this day. And keep him with Elisha's spoken word. I wonder if that's that pool that I thought that was the healing water. I don't know. Where was he again? Can't remember. Okay, so that's his second miracle. Elisha left to go up to Bethel. As he was on his way up the road, some boys came out of the town and began making fun of him. And here is Bethel, where the golden calf is. And here is that's Ephraim territory again. And the boys came out of the town and began making fun of him. So these boys, I've learned in some other studies that they could definitely be, 18 years old. They're not little children. And they say, go on up, Baldy, go on up, Baldy. He looked behind him saw them and put a curse on them in the name of Adonai. Whereupon two female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. And the Great Tribulation is 42 months. 42 is a good study. He went out from there to Mount Carmel and then returned to Shamron. So, how many miracles did I count? Let's see. This is the third one here. 3 miracles. Boys is the third one. Even though it's a curse, it's still, like a miracle. It's and so Bedel, and then he goes back to he goes to Shamron. So it's interesting, these travels. The travels mean something too. The miracles, the order of the miracles, the amount of miracles, meaning the number they perform, and their travels, because the cities themselves mean something. I'm not going into all of that, but I'm just pointing it out. Keep an eye on those things in your own studies. So 3 miracles. Okay, 3:1. 2 Kings 3:1. Jehoram, the son of Achab, began his reign over Israel in Shamron during the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, and he ruled for 12 years. And guess what he did? So this is Ahab's brother, because Ahab's son Ahaziah didn't have a son. He didn't have any kids. So the crown went to the brother. In 12 years. Okay, so he did what was evil from Adonai's perspective, but he was not as bad as his father and mother, because he got rid of Baal's standing stone, which his father had made. And that was Omri, Ahab's dad. Omri's the one that bought Shamron from Shemer. And you get Shemer Israel. It all means watchman. He sends watchmen out to warn. Been going over watchmen and what it means to be awake and be a watchman to watch. Sorry. So he did what was evil, but he did cut down Omri's Baal standing stone, which his father had made. So, nevertheless, he clung to the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nevat, with which he had led Israel to sin. He never turned away from them. Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheep breeder, and he used to send the king of Israel the wool of 100,000 lambs and of 100,000 rams as tribute. But after Ahab's death, after Ahab died, the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. Jehoram left Shamron and mustered all Israel. He also went and sent this word to Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda. Now, Jehoshaphat was doing what was right. The king of Moab has rebelled against me. Will you join me in attacking Moab? He answered, I will join in the attack. I'm with you all the way. Think of my people and horses as yours. So Judah and Jehoram, Jehoshaphat and Jehoram, Judah and Israel are going to go together. Which route should we take? The road through the desert of Edom, answered Jehoram. So the king of Israel set out along with the king of Yehuda and the king of Edom. So here you got Esau, Judah, and Ephraim. It's real. Israel, Judah, and Edom. Esau. I mean, I think I just love that. I was read that. That's something else. That's just something else. Okay, so after a roundabout journey of 7 days, there was no water for either of the army or the animals following them. This is terrible, exclaimed the king of Israel. Has Adonai called these three kings together only to hand them over to Moab? But Jehoshaphat said, isn't there a prophet of Adonai here through whom we can consult Adonai? One of the servants of the king of Israel answered, Elisha, the son of Shaphat, is here, the one who used to pour water on Eliyahu's hands. Jehoshaphat said, the word of Adonai is with him. So the king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, and the king of Edom went down to consult him. Elisha said to the king of Israel, what do you and I have in common? Go consult your father's prophets and your mother's prophets. Elisha was not happy to be speaking to him. But the king of Israel answered him, no, because Adonai has called these three kings together to hand them over to Moab. Elisha said, as Adonai Sabaoth lives, before whom I stand, if I didn't respect the fact that Jehoshaphat, the king of Yehudah, is here, I wouldn't even look in your direction or take notice of you. See, like, again, Jehoshaphat was living right in the eyes of the Father, and Joash was not. But now, bring me a musician. As the musician played, the hand of Adonai fell on Elisha, and he said, Adonai said to dig until this valley is full of trenches. For here is what Adonai says. You won't see wind and you won't see rain. Nevertheless, the valley will be filled with water and you will drink. And this is verse 17. You, your cattle, and your other animals. She was number 17. I think this is the fourth miracle, unless I'm miscounted. I think it's the fourth miracle. Okay. That's an easy thing to do from Adonai's perspective. He will also hand Moab over to you. You will conquer every fortified city and every choice town. You will chop down every good tree, stop up every well, and ruin every good field with stones. The next morning, around the time for making the offering, water came from the direction of Edom, and the countryside was filled with water. When all Moab heard that the kings had come up to attack them, every man was summoned, from the youngest capable of bearing arms to the oldest one, and stationed on the border. They rose early in the morning when the sun was shining on the water. Moab, when they saw the water in the distance looking as red as blood, said, that's blood. The kings must have quarreled, and their soldiers killed each other. Moab to the plunder. So that's first they get the water. I think that would be considered the fourth miracle, and then the blood itself. This is like a uh, fifth miracle. He confounded them. Well, he did. That's why it's like, hey, they know there ain't no way that's water in the desert. It's impossible, is what Moab's thinking, right? When they arrived at the camp of Israel, Israel launched an attack so that Moab fled before them. But they advanced on Moab and struck it. They made ruins of the cities. Each man threw his stone on every good field covering it. They stopped up all the wells. They chopped down all the good trees. Finally, all that remained was Kir Hareseth, sat behind its stone wall with the slingers surrounding and attacking it. When the king of Moab saw that the fighting was too much for him, he took with him 700 men armed with swords and tried to break through to the king of Edom, but they couldn't do it. Then he took his firstborn son, who was to have succeeded him as king, and offered him as a burnt offering on the wall. Following this, such great anger came upon Israel that they left him and went back to their own land. So I don't know why Israel didn't go ahead and take him out. They should have. They shouldn't have left him alive. They should not have left Moab alive. The king of Moab. And see how wicked they were? His heir to the throne, he burns on the altar to no gods. To no God. Wickedness, man. Just wickedness. Okay, 2 Kings 4. The wife of one of the guild prophets complained to Elisha. Your servant, my husband, died, she said, and you know that he feared Adonai. Now a creditor has come to take my 2 children as his slaves. Elisha asked her, what should I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? She answered, your servant has nothing in the house but a flask of oil. Then he said, go and borrow containers from all your neighbors. I think this would be the 6th miracle. Go and borrow containers from all your neighbors and empty containers, and don't borrow just a few. Then go in, shut the door with you and your sons inside, pour oil into all those containers, and as they are filled, put them aside. So he left him and shut the door on herself and her sons. They brought her containers while she poured. When the containers were full, she said to her son, bring me another container. But he answered, there isn't another container. Then the oil stopped flowing. See, that's interesting. There's no more containers and the oil stops flowing. Go sell the oil and pay your debt. Then you and your son can live on what is left. One day, Elisha sixth miracle. Okay, and the order of that was the oil first. I think the oil. Okay, one day, Elisha visited Shunem, and a well-to-do woman living there pressed him to stay and eat a meal. After this, whenever he came through, he stopped there for a meal. She said to her husband, I can see that this is a holy man of God who keeps stopping at our place. Please, let's build him a little room on the roof. We'll put a bed and table in it for him, and a stool and a candlestick. Then whenever he comes to visit us, he can stay there. So she built him an upper room. One day, Elisha came to visit there, and he went up into the upper room to lie down. He said to Gehazi, his servant, call this Shunammite, or Shunammite. He called her, and when she arrived, he said to him, tell her this, you have shown us so much hospitality. What can I do to show my appreciation? Do you want me to say anything to the king for you, or to the commander of the army? She answered, I'm happy living as I do among my own people. He said, what then is to be done for her? Gehazi answered, there's one thing. She doesn't have a son, and her husband is old. Elisha said, call her. After he called her, she stood in the doorway. He said, next year, when the season comes around, you will be holding the son. No, my lord, she answered. Man of God, don't lie to your servant. 17. But the woman conceived and gave birth to a son the following year when the season came around, just as Elisha said to her. So, all this points to Yeshua, all these miracles, right? The woman conceived, she's going to conceive and bear a son, a miracle birth. She's going to have children, right? Yeshua's is immaculate, but was an immaculate birth, but it still is a foreshadow of him, right? When the child was old enough, he went out one day to be with his father, who was with the reapers. Suddenly cried out to his father, my head hurts, he said to his servant, carry him back to his mother. When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he lay on her lap until noon, and then he died. So there's a miracle birth of Yeshua. There's his sacrifice, his death, a foreshadow of it. She went up and laid on him, or laid on the bed of the man of God, shut the door on him, and went out. She called to her husband and said, please send me one of the servants with a donkey. I must get to the man of God as fast as I can. I'll come straight back. He said, what are you going to do to him today? It is Rosh Chodesh, and it isn't Shabbat. It isn't Rosh Chodesh, and it isn't Shabbat, she said. It's all right. Then she saddled the donkey and ordered her servant, drive as fast as you can. Don't slow down for me unless I say so. She set out and came to the man of God on Mount Carmel. When the man of God saw her in the distance, he said to Gehazi, his servant, look, here comes that Shunammite. Run now to meet her and ask her, is everything all right with you, with your husband, with the child? She answered, everything is all right. But when she reached the man of God on the hill, she grabbed his feet. Gehazi came up to push her away, but the man of God said, leave her alone. She is in great distress. But Adonai has hidden from me what it is. He hasn't told me. Then he said, did I ask my Lord for a son? Didn't I say not to deceive me? Then Elisha said to Gehazi, get dressed for action. Take my staff in your hand and be on your way. If you meet anyone, don't greet him. If anyone greets you, don't answer, and lay my staff on the child's face. The mother of the child said, as Adonai lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. He got up and followed her. See this? He's saying the same thing Elisha said. Gehazi went on ahead, and then this Gehazi, I will not leave you, went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the child's face. But there was no sound or life, or there was no sound or sign of life. So he went back to Elisha and told him the child didn't wake up. When Elisha reached the house, there the child was, dead and laid on the bed. He went in, shut the door on the two of them, and prayed that night. Then he got up on the bed and lay on top of the child, putting his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. Eyes, hands, mouth. As he stretched himself out on the child, his flesh began to grow warm. Then he went down, walked around in the house a while, went back up and stretched himself out on the child again. The child sneezed 7 times, then opened his eyes. So there's the miracle of the resurrection, right? Picture that. It's the foreshadow of all this point to Yeshua. And I can't remember what the child sneezed 7 times is about. In the Judah teachings, trying to remember, but the 7 goes with all Father 7s, but there's more to this, and I need to go find that out. I can't remember. Me and Casey was talking about it, but I can't remember. Then he opened his eyes. Elisha called Gehazi and said, call this Shunammite. So he called her, and when she came in to him, he said, pick up your son. She entered, fell at his feet, and prostrated herself on the floor. Then she picked up her son and went out. Elisha went back to Gilgal. At this time there was a famine in the land. The Gilgal's in Gad's territory. Trying to think where Gilgal is again. It's on my map here. Oh no, see, Gilgal is in Manasseh's territory, right here, above Jericho. At the time there was a famine in the land. The guild prophets were sitting before him, and he said to his servant, "Put the big pot on fire and boil some soup for the prophets." One of them went out to the field to gather vegetables and came upon a wild vine, from which he filled the front of his cloak with wild squash. On returning, he cut them up and put them into the stew. They didn't know what they were. Then they poured it out for the men to eat. But on tasting it, they cried, "Man of God, there's death in that pot." And they couldn't eat it. But he said, "Bring some flour." He threw it in the pot and then said, "Pour it out for the people to eat." This time there was nothing harmful in the pot. So that wild vine, um, represents wild vines of Pharaoh's daughter and Solomon. That's a wild vine that was brought in. And then Solomon went and brought all kinds of other wild vines. And then wild vine also represents the northern kingdom and the wild olive branch, right? Um, because Solomon, he took all, people think he took all those wives because he just loved women, but he did it for the alliance between those women, him and those women's father. He was trying to fortify uh, the Holy Land, all the inheritance of the 12 tribes. He was trying to fortify that land with all of the kingdoms around him by making allies, by marrying all of their daughters, all his king's daughters, right? Princesses, 700 wives, and then he had 300 concubines. Those were alliance marriages instead of depending on father to protect. He said, "Don't go marrying, don't take many wives, and I go before you. And if you obey me." So he didn't need to do that, but he took it upon himself to do all that. So anyway, the wild vines got in, and here is a picture of that. And this miracle is a picture of Yeshua healing that with his sacrifice and resurrection. And the bread, the flour, that's a wave offering, right? That Elisha I told him to put in the pot. So it healed it, the bread of life. And they could, so he said, "Bring some flour." He threw it in the pot and said, "Pour it out for the people to eat." This time there was nothing harmful in the pot. A man came from Baal Shalisha, bringing the man of God 20 loaves of bread made from the barley first fruits. So first fruits, Yeshua's first fruits, and fresh ears of grain in his sack. So barley is Pesach, right? Time of Pesach, and first fruits. So and the bread of life, healing the wild vine. Elisha said, "Give this to the people to eat." His servant said, "How am I to serve this to 100 men?" But he said, "Give it to the people to eat, for Adonai says that they will eat and have some left over." So he served them, and they ate and had some left over, as Adonai had said. So, and all these miracles, Yeshua did in great greater mass, right? Um, Elisha's feeding 100 with 20 loaves, and Yeshua's uh, feeding 5,000 with uh, 52. Well, 52, 52. Two fishes or 12 and 2. I can't remember. Sorry, 50. 12 loaves, I think. It was 12, yeah, 12 loaves or 12 baskets. 12 was in it. Um, and I think maybe the 2 and 10. But anyway, everything they were, Elijah, Elisha was doing, Yeshua did on a much greater scale. So this all points to him, all the miracles of the prophets, just pointing it out as we go along. So Naaman, commander of the king of Aram's army, was highly respected and esteemed by his master because through him Adonai brought victory to Aram. But although he was a brave warrior, he also suffered from uh, Zaraat, which is leprosy. Now, one of their raids into Israel's territory, Aram carried away captive a little girl who became a servant for Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, I wish my Lord could go to the prophet in Shamron. He could heal his Zaraat, sorry, no H, Zaraat. Naaman went in and told his Lord, the girl from the land of Israel said such and such. The king of Aram said, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. He sent out, taking with him 660 pounds of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of clothes. He brought the king of Israel the letter, which said, when this letter reaches you, you will see that I have sent my servant Naaman to you, Naaman, so that you can heal his Zarat. When the king of Israel finished reading the letter, he tore his clothes. Am I God able to kill and make alive? Yes. So that he sends me a man to heal his Zarat. It's funny. You can see that he is only seeking an excuse to quarrel with me. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. Why did you tear your clothes? Just have him come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him who said, go and bathe yourself in the Jordan 7 times. Go dunk yourself in the Jordan River 7 times. Your skin will become as it was, and you will be clean. But Naaman became angry and left, saying, here, now I thought for certain that he would come out personally, that he would stand, call on the name of Adonai as God, and wave his hand over the diseased place, and thus heal the person with Zarat. All right. Amanah and Papar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the water in Israel. Why can't I bathe in them and be clean? So he turned and went off in a rage. But his servants approached him and said, my father, if the prophet had asked you to do something really difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So doesn't it make even more sense to do what he says when it's only bathe and be clean? So he went down to immerse himself 7 times in the Jordan, as the man of God had said to do, and his skin was restored and became like the skin of a child, and he became clean. So there's Yeshua healing the lepers. Then with his whole retinue, he returned to the man of God. Went and stood before him and said, well, I've learned that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Therefore, please accept a present from your servant. But Elisha answered, as Adonai lives, before whom I stand, I will not accept it. And despite his urging him to take it, he refused. He said, prophets are not for hire. Prophets, it's not wrong to accept a gift, but what you accept a gift for? You don't accept gifts for the miracles Father does. So Naaman said, if you take it, then please let your servant be given as much earth as 2 mules can carry, because from now on your servant will offer neither burnt offerings nor sacrifices to other little g gods, but only to Adonai, except this, and may Adonai forgive your servant for it. When my master goes into the temple of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, when I bow down, may Adonai forgive your servant for this. Elisha said to him, go in peace. Naaman had got only a short distance from him when Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said to him, here my master has made it easy on this Arami Naaman by not accepting from him what he brought. As Adonai lives, I'll run after him and get at least something from him. So Gehazi hurried off after Naaman. When Naaman saw someone running after him, he got down from his chariot to meet him and asked, everything all right? Yes, he replied, my master sent me with this message. 2 young men have just now come to me, guilt prophets from the hills of Ephraim. Would you be kind enough to give them a talent of silver, 66 pounds, and 2 changes of clothes? By all means, take 2 talents, said Naaman, pressing him. He tied up the 2 talents of silver in 2 bags and gave them, with the 2 changes of clothes, to 2 of his servants who carried them ahead of Gehazi. On reaching the hill, he took the bags from them and put them away in the house, and he let the men go, and they left. When he went in and stood before his master Elisha, where have you been, Gehazi? Your servant hasn't gone anywhere, he said. Elisha said to him, wasn't my heart there with you when the man left his chariot to meet you? Is this a time to receive silver and clothing, and olive groves and vineyards and sheep and oxen and male and female slaves? Therefore, Naaman's Zaharet will cling to you and your descendants forever. He left Elisha's presence with Zaharat as white as snow. Don't go taking merchandise for Father's miracles. They're not for sale. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll pick up at 2 Kings 6 in the next video as we're walking it out together. So you guys have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time. Shalom.